Welcome back to Adwoa Biotech, where we make biological sciences clear. In this video, we're going to go through the whole workflow for your primer design. So we're not just going to take it in snippets, we just walk through what the typical journey would look like. For your primer design, you will have to go and look for the sequences of the organism or the target that you are trying to amplify. And here you can go and get it from databases like PlasmoDB if you're dealing with an organism like Plasmodium, or you could go to NCBI's database and download the particular sequences that you are interested in. For cloning purposes, if you're designing primers that are involved in cloning, then you will want the cDNA sequences. You want sequences without the introns. So you may, if you're doing general PCR, genomic DNA sequences may be okay, but for cloning purposes, you wouldn't want those sequences. So once you've got those, then you want to copy the sequences. You want to download it as a FASTA format. FASTA format means that you have a greater than symbol, then the header of the sequences. So it describes what the sequences are. Then it's followed by the nucleotides, or it could be amino acids if you're dealing with proteins. But in our case, we're dealing with nucleotides, so that would be the FASTA sequence. And then you want to paste the FASTA sequence into a Word document or any other document that allows you to manipulate the sequences. And here you want to now get primers for the sequence. So you can use Primer 3, you can use software and tools from services like IDT PrimerQuest, and you can also use NCBI's BLAST to get your sequences, or you can just use subscription-based software if you have Genius, or there are also ones where you have free access like SnapGene and Benchling. And the goal is to get the software to help you find unique sequences that can be used to amplify out the amplicon, the sequences that you are interested in. So if you're looking for the unique sequences, it will also need to be aware of the general context of the sequence so that it doesn't give you a sequence that can bind somewhere else. So that's where using a tool helps. You could do it manually, but that would take a lot longer and a lot more intense thinking than if you use a tool, a software tool. So the software will look for unique sequences at the beginning for your forward primer, and then at the end for your reverse primer, so you can amplify a decent portion of the sequence to be confident that that's indeed what you're looking for. And it has to be unique again, because you don't want to have sequences amplified that has nothing to do with the DNA that you're actually interested in. So once the software gives you some sequences that it thinks are unique, you still have to check for a few things to make sure that those sequences, you can go ahead with it, you can get it synthesized. And so there are tools again that you can use. So you want to look for whether the primer sequence can fold back on itself and form a secondary structure known as a hairpin. If it can, then you don't want to proceed with that kind of sequence. You also want to be able to check whether the primer can bind with another primer, so you get a primer dimer, and that way if it does do it, then it will amplify a sequence that you're not interested in. You can also have, so with the primer dimers, it may be cross dimers where it maybe binds with the reverse and forward primer, or it may be a self dimer, so it can itself have sequences that are compatible and can complementary in this case, and can amplify a sequence that you're also not interested in. So that's another step that we have to take to ensure that our suggested primers or recommended primers are going to give us unique products. Once we do that, we also have to check that the primers, if it doesn't have any secondary structure formation, that it doesn't bind anywhere else in the organism. So what we've done is we've given the sequence of DNA that we wanted to get a primer for, say, as a gene on a particular chromosome. But most organisms have chromosome. So you need to check the entire organism's nucleic acid, its DNA, to check that it's not binding anywhere else other than the sequence that we initially, or the gene that we were initially interested in. So that's where you use NCBI's Primer Blast and the basic local alignment search tool. That's what the BLAST stands for, so that you can see that it doesn't bind anywhere else in the organism. With this tool, you may get recommendations. You will come up with alignments inevitably to other sequences, but what you use to decide whether you can proceed with that particular primer suggestion or recommendation is whether the expect score is high, the likelihood of that primer binding. And so here you go for expect scores that are very, very, very low, so unlikely, and that way you can proceed with the primer even though it binds somewhere else. And obviously if you bind somewhere else but it's a totally different organism, then you're not concerned at all. Another thing too is sometimes you can see it binding somewhere else, but it has a few mismatches, and that could be a good thing. So if there are a lot of mismatches near the 3' end, then it's okay to go ahead with it, because that's where it's quite critical to not have it attach properly, not have it anneal properly. If it's not annealing properly, then it's less likely to create a product. So once you've got all this done, it's great to go back to your original sequence and see where the primers bind. So for your reverse primer, I suggest like a Word document. You just use a search function and you'll be able to see where it binds. And then you can check where the reverse primer is also binding. This is particularly useful if you had found the primers in literature, for instance, and you just want to see where it binds on the gene sequence. So with your checking where it binds, you will have problems with the reverse primer, because the reverse primer doesn't appear in the sequence. This is because it's a complement of the sequence. So this is where you use a tool like reverse complement to see what the original sequence is in the gene, and that way it will show you where it's binding, and you can ascertain as to whether you're happy with where it's binding and whether you're going to get a good enough product for your purposes. So when you get the primers, you're very happy with it, then you need to consider the melting temperature and the annealing temperature. The annealing temperature should be lower than the melting temperature. And what's recommended is that you choose the polymerase that you intend to use for your enzymatic reaction, for your extension or your replication of the genetic material. And based on that, you will decide what the melting temperature should be for that particular polymerase. And so what you have to do is remove parts of the primer in order to get it into the right melting temperature for the polymerase. So once you're confident of the primers that you're going forward with, so you've checked that there's no secondary structure, you've checked that it doesn't bind anywhere else in the genome, or if it does, it's got a lot of mismatches. You've checked that the forward and reverse primers are within 5 degrees Celsius difference between them, then you're quite confident that this primer should work. And so what you have to do next is order it. And when you're ordering it, these are the considerations. So you need to look at what sort of purification you want. There's several grades. There's like a desalted grade, which tends to be standard, so you don't have to pay extra. But if you want a higher purity, like HPLC, then you will pay extra. There's also other ways of purifying the primers where they would run it on acrylamide gel or use a cartridge to purify it. And so these all factor into the cost of it. So those are what you have to specify. And they'll also ask you about the synthesis grade, so how concentrated you want it to be. So you may want to go with like a nanomole amount, like 25 nanomole or 50 nanomole, or go even higher. For regular PCR, so conventional PCR, you wouldn't have to think about any probes or modifications. But if you are doing qPCR, then you can specify if you want additional probes when you're ordering. And so this is where they have like the FAM and the HEX and these fluorophores that they can put onto the primer so that you get a real-time readout of the polymerase replicating your product. You usually fill this out in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you go ahead and order it from your synthesis company. And then once it comes, we've got a video on here as to how to resuspend it, but basically you make it up into a particular concentration so that it's ready to use in your PCR reactions. So that's this for this video. If it was helpful, you know what to do. Please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and join the study group. And you can go ahead and take a look at these other videos that go into depth about how to do your primer designs, or you may be interested in looking at this playlist on molecular cloning, or you may be interested in looking at the life cycle of the Plasmodium falciparum parasite.
Be strong.